Quick question. Has God ever called you to do something in your life that's made zero logical sense? Now, I want you to really think about this for a second and go back to maybe like your teenage years, your college years, your young adult years, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, wherever you might be, and however long you have lived. If you go back 20, 30 years, can you name maybe even one time where you felt that God called you to do something that made no sense? Maybe it was risky. Maybe it was something that you weren't necessarily qualified for. Maybe it was outside of your comfort zone. I just want to encourage you, if you have felt crazy because of this call, that is one of the main things that we can say that was God. I remember whenever I felt called to marry this man that I had only known for a couple weeks. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't articulate it. I couldn't give you the reasons why he was the man that I wanted to marry. I just knew his name was Thomas Bruce. He loved the Lord, and I was going to marry him. Y'all, I knew I was going to marry Thomas on our second date. Our second date, I I've only shared this story a couple times to people that know me and love me, but I'm going to share it with you. On our second date, we booked our honeymoon. Who in their right minds books their honeymoon, books the church on the second date? Crazy people. Crazy people who don't have any wisdom in their big toe, okay? Like crazy people. But here we are, 14 years later, with four kids, and we are best friends and we love each other. I knew that God chose Thomas Bruce for me. And I couldn't explain it, I couldn't articulate it. When God called me to write a book, I had zero credentials. I did not have any writing experience other than my journal. I journaled, y'all. I am an avid journaler. I journal every single day. That was my only writing experience. I had no English degree. I had an education degree. I could teach. I know how to teach frameworks and simplify complex things that I do feel confident in, but I had no English degree. I had no writing experience, and I absolutely had no plan. God did not tell me, Brittany, this is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to write. This is what you're going to do. He just said, write, write a book. And so when I told my husband and my family and my friends, like, I'm writing a book, and they said, what are you writing it about? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know God called me to write a book. I felt crazy. And that's how I knew God was in it, because I felt crazy when I told my mom I'm marrying that boy, Thomas Bruce. I was 22 years old. I was a child. I knew him for 5 minutes, and I told my mom I'm marrying that man. And God did it. And he's still doing it. And so I had confidence because I had seen the crazy before. I've experienced the crazy before. And he pulled through for me. And so if you felt called to do something that makes you feel insane, makes you feel crazy because it doesn't make sense, it might be even impossible to do, I want to encourage you in this episode. When we were called to move to Orange Beach, Alabama, to the beach, uh, we had purchased a condo there because I was hosting a lot of retreats, and at the time for photographers, I was hosting one every couple of months, and so it was a wise investment for us at that time. But when God called us to move to the beach, our son Joe, he was 5 years old, and he was diagnosed with autism a couple years earlier. One of his sensitivities was wind and sand. He couldn't have sand on his body, and wind going through his hair and on his face. It just made him melt down. And so I told God when he called us to move to Orange Beach, I said, God, I can't do that because of Joe. I'm gonna not move my son to the beach because there's sand everywhere. There's wind everywhere. This doesn't make sense. It would be impossible for us to do this. We are landlocked on family property. We can't sell our home to anyone. We can't put it on Zillow. It's on family property. It's impossible to do this. But what I've seen and I've learned is that when it doesn't make sense, that's how you know it's God. That's how you know it's God Almighty, the all powerful, the all knowing, who's going to make things happen. And so I don't know if you're there right now or you feel the same. You feel what God's calling you to do is impossible. You're unsure. You just go, you have doubt, that just waves of doubt that come over you over and over and over. You feel underqualified. You feel like what he's calling you to do, you don't have the capacity for, you don't have the knowledge for, you don't have the experience for. You feel crazy. But remember, the crazy might be the clearest evidence that this is from God because you didn't think this up on your own. In Ephesians 3:20, it says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." God can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. Now, anytime that I've ever heard this passage preached, this message shared, it is like a pep rally, like you can do it. But when I am reading this, I am reminded that God can do immeasurably more, exceedingly abundantly more than our capacity, than our experience, than our qualifications, than our degrees. He can do so much more than who we are on our own, according to his power. Not our own wisdom, not our own strength, not our own smarts, not our own qualifications, according to his power that is at work within us. That is such good news for us who are called to do the impossible, the illogical, the irresponsible. It's really good news for us because it tells us that it's God doing the heavy lifting. It's God doing the hard work. It's God moving the mountains, splitting the seas, providing the resources. It's God. It's not on us. And so that's really, really good news for us who feel crazy to do the call on our life. So I want to give you 3 reminders real quick if you feel that God has called you to do something impossible and you feel a little crazy. Number 1, God's call is rarely logical. And we see that through the whole book of the Bible, the entire thing. God's call is rarely logical. Let's go back to Noah. God called Noah to build a boat in the middle of dry land. Now, we see boats in the middle of dry land all the time. You go to the boat store, we got boat stores on every corner down here in Gulf Shores, and there's boats just lined up on dry land. But back in Noah's time, rain had not yet existed. And so to build an ark, to build a boat on dry land is not logical whatsoever. God called Noah to build an ark, to build a cruise ship on dry land because God knew what was coming and Noah had to trust the call. He had to trust the call giver in order to do the work. All right, let's speed up a little bit. Let's go to Abraham. Abraham was called to be the father of many nations, thousands and thousands and thousands of sons and daughters that he would have. But his wife was barren. His wife could not have babies, and they were old. They were grannies and they were old people. And so again, if you've read the book of Genesis, you know what happens. Abraham tries to take matters into his own hands, and things happen. But what did God do? God gave Sarah a son. He did the work. He did immeasurably more. He made it happen. Let's move on to Moses. Moses was a fugitive on the run. Moses murdered an Egyptian. He ran away so that he wouldn't go to prison for his whole life. He had a speech impediment, and God called him to go back to Egypt where he is wanted. He's a wanted man, and he has a stutter, and he calls Moses to speak to the most powerful person in the world, Pharaoh, where again, he is a wanted man, to free his people, the Hebrews, from hundreds of years of slavery. Like, that is not logical. That doesn't make any sense. But again, God had a plan. God had a purpose, and Moses had to trust the plan giver. He had to trust him. He had to be obedient. He had to do what he was called to do, despite the fact that it did not make sense and it was illogical. So, what is God calling you to do that does not make sense? That is illogical. And I want you to go back and remember in every place of your life where God has called you to do something that didn't make sense, and he showed up and he did the work. We have to go and remember what he has done before. Go back to the scriptures. Look at the people that he poured into, that he served, that he showed up for, and what he called them to do. I was reading Joshua this morning. He told Joshua and the Hebrew people to march around a city. And that's how the walls were going to fall down, and that's how they were going to capture the city of Jericho. What? Walk around this city, march around this city, and then on the last day, do it 7 times and shout really loud, and that's how the walls are going to fall down? Is that logical? No, it's not. Joshua and his people had to trust God. They did what they were called to do, and God made it happen. God did the heavy lifting. God did the work. So I want to just encourage you, say yes to the call. If it's illogical, know that God is in it, and he wants to show his power in your circumstance. He wants to show the miracles in your circumstance. He wants to have a relationship with you, and this is how. This is one of the ways he wants to have a relationship with you. He doesn't want to just give you stuff. He wants to show up in your life and show off so that you trust him even more, because this call, this illogical call to do something crazy, is just the stepping stone for what he has next for you. It's going to get crazier and crazier. I feel like every year I'm like, what's this year, God? I don't even try to plan my years out anymore, because I know God is going to call me to do something that doesn't make sense and is not on my bingo card. And I have to trust him and say yes. And I do it because I've seen all that he's done in the last 14 years. God's call is rarely logical. If it doesn't make sense, it's evidence that God is in it. Secondly, second reminder I want to give you is God uses least likely people. The ones who feel unqualified are usually the ones God chooses. Why? Because if God only chose the super qualified, the super strong, the super powerful, the super fill in the blank, he does not get the glory. He does not get to show off his power. He does not get to show off his miracles. And that's why he uses people like me, who I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but I know my God, and I depend on him every minute of the day, and I seek him, and I am faithful with what he's given me. So he just keeps giving me more crazy things to do, because he knows I'm going to say yes. He knows I'm going to be obedient. So he keeps giving me these crazy things. It's not because I'm smart. It's not because I'm strong. It's not because I have all of these talents. No, I have a very specific set of skills. I have a very specific set of skills, and God does use it. But most of what he does best through me is way outside of that. So if you feel unqualified, if you feel like you are the last person to do the job, guess what? It's because God wants to work through you. He wants to work in you first so that you trust him, you say yes to him, you step out in faith, and then he wants to work through you so that you can see his power, so that you can see how good God is despite your flaws, despite your sin, despite your past, despite your weaknesses, despite your doubts, he still chooses you. I love watching The Chosen. If you haven't watched the Chosen series, I highly suggest that you binge it. Binge Jesus. Watch Chosen Jesus. I love watching when he chooses Peter, who at the time, I mean, I think one of the first scenes we see in Peter is he's in a all out brawl. He's like in a fight with somebody. He is working on the Sabbath, which is a big no-no in the Jewish culture. He is trying to provide for his wife, but like his mouth gets him in trouble. I mean, it's Peter. Like we all relate to Peter. Peter is just a guy and a friend that like we know that we would like buddy up with if we were living back in Jesus' day. But he uses Peter. He chooses Peter. And Peter kneels down. He says, Peter, follow me. And Peter kneels down in front of Jesus and he says, no, I'm a sinful man. You don't understand. Like I am basically unworthy to follow you or do anything for you. And then Jesus says, Peter, I will make you fishers of men. And he chose someone who was not qualified to be a student under Jesus. He had a lot of mistakes. He had a past. He was the least likely person to preach the gospel, to write the books in scripture and in the word. Like he is literally the last person on the planet to do these things. And God and Jesus chose him, chose Peter, and says, I'm going to use what you have. I'm going to take your experience as a fisherman, your skill as a fisherman, and I'm going to have you make fishers of men and do the thing that I'm calling you to do. So if you feel you are the last girl on the planet to do the work that God's calling you to do, that means God's in it because he wants to show his patience through you, his power through you, his provision through you. When God called us to homeschool, oh my gosh. Yes, I have a degree in education, but like any teacher out there who's listening to this knows when I say that degree does not actually teach you to teach. Doesn't teach you to teach, especially your own kids. Okay. So when God called me to homeschool, I'm like, I am the last person that has patience with these children. I will love them. I will cuddle them. I will feed them. I will play with them. But please, God, I don't feel qualified to teach my son who is autistic. Only special education teachers can do that. And and God wasn't having it. And he says, I'm going to do it through you. I am going to teach through you. I'm going to provide the things you need, which is the thing that I needed the most was patience. And if you feel called to homeschool, the thing that has gotten me through these first 6 months is the most important thing is not choosing the right curriculum. This is a sidebar, so y'all, I apologize for this. The most important thing is not choosing a curriculum. The most important thing is connecting with your kids, is getting to know your kids, is traveling with your kids, is having fun with your kids, is listening to your kids, it's cooking with your kids, it's cleaning the house with your kids, it's teaching them how to do life, It's connecting. And so that's one of the things that I felt just the Lord just pour over me, which gave me so much peace, is that like, it's not on me to make sure my kids go to Harvard, but it is on me that my kids go to heaven. It's not on me that my kids are, you know, straight A's, top of their class, whatever, but it is on me that my kids know Jesus. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. So again, I want to remind you, God uses the unqualified. He uses the least likely people to do his work so that he can be our strength in our weakness. And he can show off who he is in your life. And he can just wow you with his goodness. The third reminder, if you feel like God is calling you to do something that doesn't make sense and you feel crazy, is that God's power works through your yes. You don't need the full plan. You don't need a play-by-play. You don't need the steps. You need faith to take the first step. And that's just to say yes. And you come to the Lord and you say, I don't know what this is going to look like. I am scared. I am fearful. I don't understand, but I trust you and I love you. And I am depending on you to provide the things that we need, everything we need to take this first step. So I'm saying yes to the call. And your obedience activates his power. He needs you to take that first step. He needs you to lift your staff. He needs you to do the things so that he can split the sea. If you go back to Exodus, Moses did not split the sea. He lifted his hands. He lifted his staff. That's all he had. He did the one thing, and God did the rest. He did the heavy lifting. So, what is God calling you to do that feels impossible, that feels irrational, that feels illogical, that feels downright irresponsible? Stop waiting for all the answers and just take the one small step of obedience today. Faith moves first, and then clarity follows as the days move on. I think that's one of the things that I struggle with is I want clarity at the call. I want clarity when he says to do the thing. Clarity doesn't happen until we take action. So, looking back, every crazy call that God has given me has led me into this exact moment, sitting in this exact chair, sharing this exact podcast episode, and he's doing the same for you. And it has to start with you saying yes, so he can continue to give you callings, assignments, responsibilities, because he has a kingdom to create, a world to change, people to save, and it starts with you saying yes. Friend, I just want a last reminder, you are not crazy, you're called. You are not crazy, you are called. And so if this episode has resonated with you at all, please share it with somebody who needs it. Please share it with the person in your life that you know they are called to preach, they're called to teach, they're called to lead, they're called to do something that doesn't make sense. They're called to move, they're called to quit their job, they're called to end the relationship, they're called to write the book, they're called to launch the podcast, to share, to be an influencer, whatever it is. Share this episode with someone who is called and remind them that they're not crazy, that God is in it. God is in the crazy. And he calls us to do the work that's impossible so that he can show his power in us and through us. I love you guys. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, consider giving us a rating and a review. And again, share it with somebody who needs it. Yeah, I love you guys. I hope you all been enjoying this crazy called series. And until next time, remember to always love people, serve people, and change lives.